Welcome to this webinar on the ERA Hub's theory of change. My name is Dag Håkon Hanberg from the Norwegian University of Science and Technology. And I'm also hosting this webinar together with Elisa Sitanti and Asa Mallen from Trondheim Techport in Trondheim in Norway. As you might have seen from the agenda and the invitation, we have three speakers here today that we're very happy to have you here. The first speaker is Maria Grazia Zucchini, and she's the coordinator of the ERA Fabric project. And then we also have John Edwards from EURASHE, and he's also advisory board member of ERA Fabric. And we also have Pirita Lindholm as well, also advisory board member of ERA Fabric and director of ERRIN. So thank you for all of you three speakers for contributing today. We will start with Maria Grazia Zucchini, and then John, and then Pirita, and then in the end we'll have a Q&A session that is shared for everyone. So while we run through the three presentations, please make note of any questions that you might have, so that you have them all saved up for the Q&A. We'll have some time for that in the end. So as I mentioned, the first speaker will be Maria Grazia Zucchini, coordinator of the ERA Fabric project, which aims to enhance the regional research and innovation ecosystems within the European research area. And she's employed by Arter in Bologna, an organization that aims to foster sustainable growth through development and innovation, knowledge, attractiveness, and internationalization of the Emilia-Romagna region. So the stage is yours, Maria Grazia.
Okay. Thank you, Doug, for this introduction, and welcome to everybody. It is our pleasure today to host this webinar that takes part in the final part of our ERA Fabric projects. That is a project, European project, supported within the Horizon Europe program, and in particular within the wide ERA pillars that address the widening and strengthening of the European research area. Go, please. The project started a couple of years ago, at the beginning of 2023, and we are now in the last 3 months of the projects, where we are summarizing the main results that are achieved, and to provide particular tools and recommendation as it is expected from this project. As the title says, the project intends to work on framing and bridging the regional research and innovation ecosystem capacities for a renewed era. This means that the main aim of the project is to develop and test, in particular, the concept of ERA apps. That is a concept that was launched, let's say, 2-3 years ago. Within the European research area context, in order to develop new ways, new mechanisms to better coordinate the efforts carried out at European levels to promote interconnections, interoperability, collaboration, and the ultimate impact of the project. Please go. In particular, in brief, the main focus of the project was to find a way for better cooperation within and between the regions, within and between existing knowledge ecosystems, finding possibly some good practices, good examples of activities, but also trying to identify what is missing, what is critical, what deserves to be better addressed in the future, to produce at the end of the projects a set of new recommendations from policymakers in particular, and for all the actors taking part to the project, because we hope that more and more the different typologies of operators, not only scientists, but also industry men, businesses, policymakers, and ultimately also involving the civil society. That is, it is still a challenge, in particular when you talk at this level. So please go. In the first part of the project, we had discussed a lot about the definition of the concept of ERA hubs, and you can find here detailed some states that where we find agreement. We are talking, as I told just a few minutes before, we are talking about a structured governance mechanism that has in particular three specific main roles that are to align research and innovation policies, trying to find coherence with activities carried out at local, regional, national, and the European level, to facilitate structured interregional collaboration, scaling innovation, in particular crossing our borders, and finally to provide governance tools to ensure impact and policy coherence. So we are not working to develop a new institution or bureaucratic layer, not to find just a new way to finance things, not to impact only at local level, and not only trying to identify a new way of networking, but the idea is to try to optimize what still exists at European level, trying to find better coordination of the different measures, trying to identify the new approach that can facilitate, speed up, and enhance the results. So please go. So in our project, we have investigated in particular three dimensions that on the other hand are really interconnected and intertwined among each other. The first is the dimension of an ERA hub as a system of knowledge ecosystems where different actors collaborate, creating and enhancing results of the research, but only their application, their valorization in the economy world, and trying to work on common main objectives addressed together with the potential increased and more impactful results, and crossing also different disciplines and different objectives. The interaction, the collaboration within all the different typology of the quadruple helix can be also to create a multi-stakeholder platforms working in the collaboration also to the definition of the strategies and the evaluation, the assessment of the impact. The third dimension was the creation of a policy toolbox, try to integrate, align, and trying to find the synergistic and complementary effect at the different level, local, regional, and international. That maybe is one of the most still important challenge that we have. This work, please go, was carried out by the members of the project consortium that is composed by 11 partners belonging to 9 countries. One is Norway, that is an associate state. The other are 8 member states of the European Union. And we worked in particular not only at partner level, involving these institutions that are part from the research world, part are some academy, but we have also regional agencies, innovation parks, and different kind of operators. But the activities were not taken out only from the partners, but involving their stakeholders in different process, organizing focus groups, interregional workshops, and also survey carried out via web. So in this process, we have tried to take into consideration the opinion and the point of view of different operations involving really quite relevant number of actors across Europe. Also, having networking activities in collaboration with the other pilot projects carried out on the same topics of ERRIN, that is cooperated, that is managed by a Dutch organization in collaboration also with the Belgian, Danish, and Italian partners as well. And also involving other networks like ERRIN. Now we have the president, Pirita Lindholm, that will speak later after me. And in this process, the final action was developed in the last 2 months. It was an evaluation survey that we prepared in order to try to develop in a continuous and improve the way the concept of apps. And also, please go, Elisa. And also the objective of the survey was the validation of the potential impact and benefits that ERRIN can provide, starting from the consideration and the achievement that we have conducted in the previous part of the projects in order to validate this the preliminary conclusion that we obtained with our previous work, and to a better tailoring and the supporting tool and the final recommendation that we are going to produce during the month of June, and that we are going to present now during our final event that will take place in Brussels on the 5th of June. The survey that was carried out online. We did a questionnaire that remained open from February to March, and that was promoted by all the partners in our regional context, but also beyond. As you can see from the results, they were quite successful. We are quite satisfied about these results. We obtained 126 completed questionnaires at the end of the work. In the slide, you can see the geographical distribution of the participants, the respondent organization. They belong to 13 European countries, representing different regions. And of course, the major of the participants comes from the regions and the countries taking direct part in the projects. We obtained a quite good level of distribution. And we are quite satisfied of this because we can consider this result to some extent more relevant, even if we have just 126 type of respondent. If you consider a characterization of the respondents from their type, you can find that the main community, let's say, of respondent was from the research and higher education institution, the research part of the quadruped helix. We have also a quite important representative from the industrial part, the business part, composed by the industry, but also by business support organizations like Business Incubator, Technology Part, Business Accelerator, supporting system working in this topic, and the relevant part carried out by different kind of clusters or professional associations. So a good representation also of the business and industrial part. On the other hand, we involved also people from the regions, the local institution. In some cases, they are province or municipalities. We involved also a lot of regional development or innovation agency with supporting the local and regional government in the definition of the measures addressed in particular at research and innovation. And so we obtain good representatives also in this area. What is still missing is the real point of view of the civil society organization, also considering that maybe they need more practical projects, more practical area to provide any feedback, but it will be among our further scope to obtain more involvement to this part. I would like to show you some results that we obtained from this survey that we have just concluded, and that it will be further elaborated in the next month. But I would like to focus on some of the main questions that we have posed with this work. The first was about the possible outcomes of the ERRAB's initiative in a way to enhance the regional innovation and territorial competitiveness across the European Union. We asked the respondent to rate these 5 possible outcomes that we have identified, rating from the level of importance, with the possibility to have 4 points, 1 corresponding to unimportant and 4 to the greatest interest. In the table, you can see the average value that we obtained and the standard deviation for each of these possible outcomes that in this case have been ordered per level of importance given by the respondents. As you can see, the more important aspect is to build more robust research and innovation ecosystems. This is the point where we find the major level of agreement. And but there is also importance attributed to the enhancement of the transfer of knowledge and the development of entrepreneurial skills and so on. You can find the promotion exchange of knowledge valorization strategies, and in the last 2 parts, some of the experts that obtained more consensus, let's say, in particular as a way to develop platforms for stakeholder and collaboration. In any case, as you can see, the average value are in the area of average level of importance. So in all cases, these sentences can be confirmed, in particular with the first that you can find outlined in the first row. Maybe go on. The next topics investigated was the introduction of EURASHE in the panorama of the European research and innovation policies. And we asked if how the respondent consider crucial 3 specific gaps in existing EU policy mix. And as you can see from the table, there was also in this case interest in all of these 3 existing gaps, but the major consensus was about the first of the row, that it is strengthening the research and innovation ecosystems. immediately followed by filling territorial gaps, and the last is facilitating talent and investment flow. So we can say that also in this case, we have identified some gaps that are shared at European level, and in particular, the first one deserves to be, can take from the ERA apps the major advantage. The next aspect that had been investigated was about ERA apps that should act in three strategic directions, all having in common a multi-country or at least multi-regional coverage and perspective. In this case, we find all the three directions identified were considered relevant, and the response in this case was quite similar, not great distance from one issues to another. So the three directions are relevant. In any case, the support to knowledge ecosystem is the more relevant. And finally, the last input that I would like to share with you is about, in general, the capacity to bring benefits to the current EU policy scenario in terms of integration and valorization of research and innovation results. I would tell before about the three different dimensions we have investigated within this project, and we, as a result, can say that the first dimension, the dimension of ERA Hub as a knowledge ecosystem, was considered the most important, and immediately we have a relevance of the ERA Hub as a multi-stakeholder platform, and the role as a policy co-creation toolbox. It's considered relevant, but maybe the most difficult to be achieved, at least in a few months. So I think that for the introductions, that's all, and I leave the floor to the other partners.
Yes, thank you, Maria Grazia, for a nice presentation, introducing us to the to some insights of the ERA Fabric project, as well as the data from the survey. So for every one of you participating here, please save your comments and questions for the presentation by Maria Grazia for the Q&A session later on. Next up on stage is John Edwards, and he serves as the Secretary General of the European Association for the Applied Sciences in Higher Education. That is shortened to EURASHE. And what they do is to represent institutions that deliver applied higher education, and he acts as the interface between European policymaker and EURASHE members, focusing on higher education, employment, research, enterprise, and regional policy. And EURASHE strives to create European higher education areas and European research areas by influencing policy making at the European level. So the stage is yours, John.
Yes, thank you very much for that, Dag. Can you see my slides?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so first of all, thank you very much for inviting me to be involved in this webinar. That is, well, it's extremely interesting to see the work that you've been doing, and I'm been pleased to be a member of the advisory board for this project, following, let's say, from a distance, what the consortium has been doing, but still very interested in the results and looking forward to the final event in Brussels soon, in the beginning of June. And well, I think I was asked to be a member of the advisory board partly because I spent 9 years working on smart specialization, the Joint Research Centre, which is smart specialization is very much linked to the ERA Hub pilot that you've been doing. I am, as you mentioned, the Secretary General of EURASHE. This is representing Universities of Applied Science in Europe, and I think this is actually, though, an important point of it. I'll very briefly say who EURASHE is while I'm here, but is linked to the ERA hubs in the sense of the ERA hubs, as I think Maria Grazia mentioned, that it's not just a traditional research network, and it's about linking ecosystems. And University of Applied Sciences are one part of ecosystems for research and innovation. I think you have different types of higher education institutions, some doing more basic research. That's one of their main mission. Applied science universities work with companies on specific research and innovation issues. They most do less on the publishing papers and let's say the traditional metrics of scientific achievement, but both are important. Both types of higher education institutions are important, as well as all the other actors in the regional innovation ecosystem. Just as an example, I was recently in Ústí region of the Czech Republic with the Smart Specialization Community of Practice, and there the region is very frustrated with the one university that they have, because the disciplines are not aligned with the priorities, and also they are focus a lot on global knowledge production in social sciences, and that the companies, what they need actually are technicians in research and innovation, which is the type of graduates that University of Applied Sciences produce to actually work with the innovation, work with the research that wherever that is generated, the knowledge, but also actually create innovation in doing their jobs, because that's another part of research and innovation. It's not just in the laboratory. So, as I said, different types of institutions working together is certainly a very important part of the ERA Hub approach, and that's why I think EURASHE, as well as me personally, is very interested in these pilots, and we hope that it will lead to something, which I think we'll discuss more at length in this webinar, especially Pirita on the policy side. But yeah, just very briefly then, EURASHE is one of the two main European associations for higher education, European Higher Education Area, along with the European University Association. And we have more than 80 members, both national associations and individual members, also associate ones, which are from business, because we try and work with industry also at the level of the policy and European networking, like our members do in the regions, and the members who are outside the European Education Area are affiliates. So that is something about EURASHE. But now moving on to the subject today, as I said, I just would like to be a bit provocative in my opening sort of remarks, that you can then comment on and correct me as well if I'm not completely saying the right things in terms of the ERA hubs. You've been working on it much more intensively than I have. So what I would just say also from from following the discussions at the moment about the future funding program for research and innovation is that ERA hubs, and I must admit I'm not very positive in the sense of the new ERA policy agenda doesn't mention the hubs. and the last one did. So I don't know what that means, but I do believe that they provide something that we can't really see in any other part of the research innovation landscape, policy landscape. In particular, they meet the criteria for why the EU actually invests in research innovation. One of the reasons, which is that they connect different ecosystems. It's something that you can't do national level, or certainly not regional level, without an EU program. And now, I mean, there are other reasons to invest. You have single beneficiaries in the other parts of the program, like the ERC, and built on excellence. But I think that can apply, by the way, to this too. But I think I want to just concentrate my let's say my argument on this connectivity between the different ecosystems as the main added value of the hubs. Now, when you talk about connectivity, though, I mean, it's not entirely true that there are certainly other funding programs that link researchers, that link regions, and so it's part of a landscape. But I think some of the certainly collaborative projects in Horizon program and other elements of the kind of connecting researchers, what they don't do is they don't look at the specific advantages of a region, of the knowledge, entrepreneurial knowledge that you get from the smart specialization concept about what a region does well, what it's likely to have in terms of uptake of innovation. And that is really important, because if you don't do it like that, then in fact what happens, according to the sort of centrifugal forces that happen in all sort of integration processes, is that the strong regions win and the weak regions lose. So if you try and actually then cooperate on the wrong terms, then this isn't good at all for more peripheral regions. So if you can combine the two, the let's say the knowledge of the regions with the cooperation, then you have I would say a really important part of building the European research area. I mean, there are other instruments that look at regions cooperating in research innovation, especially from the cohesion policy. So the Interreg program has been going on for a long time and has an element on all the thematic priorities, including research innovation. You've got the I3 initiative, which is something new for this current program, and I think is excellent and should be reinforced. But what I think the ERA hubs offer in this landscape is that it's really led by the research and innovation community, as in those in research forming organizations. So I mean, I've got some experience with this, because I mentioned my previous role in the Joint Research Centre, where I led a project on cooperation between higher education institutions and regional authorities. But it was, in fact, regional authorities were what we work with, on how they cooperate with their universities. And there are different perspectives between regional authorities and universities, and obviously we need to try and bridge those different perspectives. But the fact that they do exist and that will continue to exist to some extent, and I think that what the ERA hubs can do, this is my argument, is that it can, let's say, start from the perspective of universities and other types of research performing organizations, to work with their regional authorities, whereas you may have other parts, like in Interreg, where it's more led from the regional side. And that's my argument, is that this is the connectivity between researchers that the ERA Hub can, but in a broad sense, that the ERA Hub initiative, I think should be doing. I hope that it will do, despite the kind of negative seems to be reception of the full-scale rollout of this pilot. So, as I said, my messages for today are that beyond my main argument that I've just presented, is that I think it's actually the timing for making such an argument couldn't be better. And that's because last year we had the report from Enrico Letta on the future of the single market. And the European Research Area, in fact, came about 20 years ago, or whenever it was, in order to try and improve the functioning of the single market. That was one of the reasons. So now it's interestingly, we've got a report on the single market, and the idea that's not new is that there should be better mobility in research and education, and that is because there's fragmentation of the system, duplication, which is not good for European competitiveness. Now, these are precisely the arguments for smart specialization. So this is not kind of something which is being invented now. And so how then do we actually approach this? Yes, we can do it through the cohesion policy, but I don't believe it's enough to do it through the cohesion policy. I think we need to have centrally managed programs to try and link strengths in Europe, regional strengths, and this is what ERA hubs can do. And then secondly, the idea of the global value chains, industrial policy of the European Union, as well as common challenges that are faced, requires cooperation. You can't just do that on your own in your own region. And as I said, this is something that I often hear an argument as why we shouldn't be supporting regional innovation ecosystems, is that, that's a matter of national competence. It's just they can build up their own ecosystems in their regions. We don't need to spend European money on it. Well, I mean, this is, for me, nonsense, because we've got common challenges that you can't do on your own. And so the cooperation therefore impacts on how you build up the regional innovation ecosystem. And then the third argument is that, let's say, what people would argue against some sort of European approach to building up regional innovation ecosystems is that you are kind of artificially intervening in the market, that in fact innovation works best when there's agglomeration of ideas and knowledge, and that that's what happens in other parts of the world, and they're very competitive. Now, apart from the fact that we don't want to be like other parts of the world, and I know it was Liberation Day yesterday, so we can make your own conclusions about that, but we kind of need to have a European approach to the, let's say, the economic geography of research and innovation. And one sort of concept that goes around is hubs and spokes, and I think we talk about ERA hubs. I think we should be talking about ERA hubs and ERA spokes as well, because you can actually then use those strengths that the ERA hubs, let's say, from an excellence perspective, create. But there should be responsibility on the ERA hubs to link to other, parts of the European ecosystem that are not in the hubs, in order to use the knowledge that is created in the ERA hubs. And then fourthly, on the synergies, which is something that has often been discussed at European level and never quite worked. I think this has already been mentioned by Mia, Grazia, and other, but in her introduction, and that was also the key. One of the key reasons for creating the hubs is to have synergies. But we need more clarity. If we have such a role for the hubs, we need to have more clarity about how they relate to the smart specialization strategies, because for me, they were the vehicle to ensure synergies. And then finally, the new ERA policy agenda. It does lack a convincing approach to any sort of geographical dimension of research and innovation. And I think I'll be in the workshop tomorrow on the ERA Act, and trying to defend this geographical dimension. As I said, that the ERA hubs were designed to help. I've spoken about the fifth freedom already, and that how it was the starting point for the ERA and smart specialization as well. We need specialization, and I think ERA hubs can help to specialize. The other thing coming from the report, as I said, more on the cohesion and the hubs and spokes, is the freedom to stay. And freedom to stay means that you have opportunities in all regions. And if we don't have hubs that can create sort of engines for excellent research in many parts of Europe, I said, linking with perhaps other parts that are not in the core but can benefit from the hubs, then we can actually give more opportunities for people to stay and be involved in the knowledge economy wherever they are located. And that's part of the letter report as well. And so, yeah, that just leads me on to an argument about hubs and spokes, that we can link researchers to the hubs, even though those researchers may not be in places that usually get all the resources the way to sort of ensure places get the knowledge is through linking to the hubs. But I said, this is just an idea, and I think it needs more consideration, perhaps in the future. But maybe this project can still do that before it finishes. And then it's my final slide, just on the kind of to look at it in a visually. You've got the ERA hubs that are research and innovation actor led, whereas you've got other instruments that are regional authority led. Because what I think can perhaps bridge this are the regional innovation valleys. But I know that Pirita has more to say on this, so I'll stop there and pass over to her. I'm happy to discuss this further and answer any questions.
Yeah, thank you, John, for a great presentation. And you also nicely lead the way over to Pirita. Pirita Lindholm, she's the director of the European Regions Research and Innovation Network, ERRIN, it's a short name. ERRIN is a Brussels-based organization that brings together over 120 organizations from more than 20 European countries, aiming to enhance the regional and local research and innovation capacities and further develop their research and innovation ecosystems. So welcome here, Pirita, and the stage is yours.
Thanks a lot for inviting me, and it's nice for me to also kind of come after John, because that allows me to build a bit on what he's been presenting, and I think well, I will not repeat everything he was saying, but clearly we are quite a bit aligned from our side on the key issues at hand. So maybe just 2 words about ERRIN. So if I can have the next slide, please. So indeed, so we are bringing together about 120 members. We really work closely with the Brussels-based organizations, and they are often representing various types of RNI stakeholders from the regional and local level. So even if we have regions in our title, we very much, in addition to cities and regions, work closely with academia, with different private sector organizations, and there I mainly mean business development organizations, chambers and commerce and so on. And the idea is really to bring this ecosystem perspective forward in our work. And basically, I would say we have 2 main areas where
some time to get Pirita back on. So I think what we can do is to start a little bit on the Q&A session, and before we dive directly into that, I'll also like to mention that we also have Cecilia Johansson here with us in the webinar, and she's also part of the ERA Fabric Advisory Board, and you're not one of the presenters here today, but still we had this small talk before the webinar, and then we talked about the importance of the ecosystems, and also about collaboration and coordination with the EU from a Swedish perspective. So perhaps Cecilia, you could share some of your thoughts in that direction.
Yes, yeah, and thank you very much for having me. And I would just say that I agree on everything that John said before me. I think also that ERA hubs they are very, very important, and the timing couldn't be better as it is right now when we are planning a new program period, all the countries and EU and the European Union. So, and I can start that I'm working at the Swedish Agency for Economic and Regional Growth in Sweden, and I'm an innovation strategist. Yeah. And yes, I would like to bring this up from a Swedish perspective. And Sweden is quite a small country, 10.5 million inhabitants, and but still we have 21 regions. And as you understand, these regions, they are not always so big. But it's a history. It's a history behind it, because we have had these regions since actually 1634, and we have changed it a little bit, but we have these 21 regions, and yeah, that's the way it is in Sweden. And all these regions, they have their own strategy for smart specialization. So we are trying to we are working a lot with the regions. We have S3 networks, and we have meetings and so on. But for us, as you understand, cooperation and collaboration across borders, across regional borders, is of course extremely important. And it's of course also very important for us in Sweden. We are not so good at it to work also internationally, and that's why also ERA hubs came in as a very, very important issue. Yeah, I think also it's extremely important to have, that's what we are discussing in Sweden right now, a functioning innovation ecosystem. So not all the regions have the same testbed for life science, for instance, but we have to collaborate across borders within Sweden. But then I also would say that would be extremely good if we can do that, improve that work also within EU, that we have to collaborate much more. And I think also that smart specialization is a very good base when it comes to collaboration. So we knew, and in that case, we knew what we should, with whom we should collaborate with, actually. And that's quite simplified, because it also happens about, it's also about value change and so on. So collaboration, innovation ecosystem within the country, but also within EU is extremely important, and also extremely important at the moment. I also would like to lift up the place-based innovation that also John brought up. It's also extremely important that it's not just strategies decided on a EU level or on a national level. It's extremely important that we don't forget the regional and local perspective, so that we have to find a way to collaborate both nationally, internationally, and locally and regionally. Yes, one more thing I would like to lift up. Don't forget the companies. When we're talking about innovation ecosystem, it's extremely important that we're thinking about the companies. It should be easy for the companies to also reach the actors within the innovation ecosystem, nationally, but also within EU. I think I read it. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Hi everyone. I'm really sorry I was kicked out from the call, and I had to install the Zoom to my phone. But I'm here if you'd like me to continue.
Fantastic, Pirita, and of course we'd like you to continue. So
Maybe you can pull the slides. I'm really sorry. I don't know what happened. Technology is not with me today, so hopefully it works from the phone that you can hear me.
Yeah, that's
well.
Works. Sounds good on this side at least. Yeah.
Very good. So maybe we can go to the next slide, and I will jump right to it. So John was quoting Letta, and as I work in the Brussels bubble, I always like to quote Draghi, as we are now in this moment, really kind of bringing innovation and competitiveness together. So and here again, there are a couple of quotes that highlight, on one hand, that one of the let's say drawbacks that we still have in Europe is linking to increasing collaboration among us, and of course creating new knowledge. So this fits, I think, quite nicely with the ERRHub concept as well. And on one hand, of course, also looking at this our innovation ecosystem as a whole in Europe, which is still fragmented. So these are areas that are kind of very much speaking for concepts like ERRHubs. However, what is missing there is this territorial dimension. So it's looking the ecosystem almost like they are somewhere not somewhere geographically. So it's sort of forgetting that innovation happens in places. If I can have the next slide, please. This is a slide that I often show to demonstrate that we actually have several policies and instruments that do somehow are there and are supporting to some extent this type of approach or related to ecosystems. However, many of those instruments are very small. They are not connected and they are not systemic. And there again, one could also make a bit of a difference when it comes to policy frameworks like the European Research Area or the new European Innovation Agenda, for example, and then various instruments that are more sitting with different funding programs, for example. And then if I can have the next slide. And this is one of the reasons that we are also in this discussion now when we are looking into the current EU priorities, but also the future funding. We've prepared quite an extensive paper as part of our paper series and looking at the multi-annual or next EU long-term budget, really focusing on this question of ecosystems. And there, of course, what is really important from our perspective is this to bring a bit these fragmented policies and support frameworks also together into one that somehow is a bit more systemic, is more structured, and provides also more structured support for the RNI ecosystems. And of course, we are also very much putting an emphasis on the fact that it's important also to recognize this territorial role when it comes to, on one hand, in enhancing the RNI ecosystem, but also when it comes to the future support. And also one key element for us is the creating a more inclusive RNI ecosystem at European level as a whole, as we are still we still see that there are certain regions and territories that are lacking behind. So it's really important to make sure that we bring everyone together to work at EU level in one speed. And if I can go back to my slide with the ecosystem landscape, I wanted to dwell on this a little bit more. Because we also had so our paper that I just presented also does an analysis of several existing of those instruments, and we had a recent meeting looking also at the future of smart specialization with the members, and there we were discussing a bit more in detail some of these instruments, and coming back a bit. What John said at the end, of course, from the regional perspective, and there it's maybe more from the regional government and also smart specialization perspective. The regional innovation valleys has been or is a very strategic instrument for when you look at smart specialization, because it really allows this coordination of innovation strategies across the different regions, and then via innovation projects tapping into expertise of the various RNI stakeholders to really to do this type of collaboration across regions and ecosystems. And of course, the other instruments like the I3, the interregional innovation investment, is also a very useful tool, very much used used by the regions, but it's really more supporting the SMEs and the private side of the ecosystem. And then going a little bit back to the ERA hubs, and of course now the project ERA Fabric and Cooperate, the sister project, has been really important to explore the concept and what can we what what is, let's say, the role and how can we bring this ERA hub concept further. And as it was mentioned, of course, it is the role of the higher education institutions is important in the ERA hub concept, and it's, as you mentioned also, and following up of the survey that was presented, there is a very strong role in knowledge transfer, knowledge valorization when it comes to ERA hubs going forward. And then maybe linking that a bit to the discussion and the current discussion in the European research area that John was also mentioning, that there will be, of course, now we have like two strands there. We have on the one hand still the ERA policy agenda for 2025 and 2027, and indeed there is nothing specifically targeting ERA hubs in this context. But in parallel, we are also, of course, looking at the ERA Act that is being developed currently. So in a way, I'm also hoping that on one hand, the current or the ERA policy agenda that's going to kick in, as well as the discussion on the ERA Act, will give an opportunity to also look into what's going to happen with the ERA hub concept after the projects as well, and how to kind of explore a bit further its potential scaling up. And maybe going back a bit of what also John was saying, that I noted that in your slides, John, there was this ERA policy agenda lacks a convincing approach to ERA hubs or geographical dimension of RNI. And this is, I think, really the essence of the issue that we have at hand, in a sense that when we were also from the ERRIN side making proposals when the ERA was revamped in 2020, and our idea was really to bring the kind of ecosystem approach to ERA, not necessarily to have a specific action in it, but really to take it also up as a more of a principle going forward. And this is maybe the ERA Act provides an opportunity to do this and to use all the expertise and experiences gathered in the ERA Fabric projects. So this is a bit what I wanted to say, and looking forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Pirita, for a nice presentation and for resolving the technicalities quickly and being back here again. That's fantastic. So then it's time for the Q&A session, and I hope you all have some questions. Some questions ready. We got some questions in the chat as well. So we got one from Simone that goes to all speakers. And then the question is, as John mentioned, an important added value of ERA hubs in the links between an important added value of ERA hubs is the link between regions. Do you know how interregional RNI ecosystems already come close to your vision of an idea ERA hub? So who would like to start? Shall we start with John?
Yeah, no, good question. And it's always the same, you know, people thinking they know what they're talking about, making all these sort of grand theories and what they'd like to see, and then what actually is happening in practice. I I mean, specifically on an ideal ERA hub, do I have an example? Well, no, because the ERA hub is, I mean, ERA Fabric and ERA Cooperator side of testing what the concept means. So in that sense, there isn't any yet. But the argument I was trying to make about it coming from the research and innovation community, in a way, is at the end of the day, we can have all these EU programs, and we have all this kind of call for synergies, but each region will be different in the sense of the actors in each region will work differently, and that is, the subject of a lot of research, and we can see that it doesn't always work. Well, very rarely works the way policymakers would have in mind, and it said depends. In one region, it could be that a university has a very important role and has the people and the skills to bring together the regional innovation ecosystem. In other regions, that won't exist, and it might be a regional development agency or a regional authority or a company or a cluster, or there may be a variety of different actors who kind of can take that role of coordinating the RNI ecosystem and then connecting it to others in other regions. I mean, the regional innovation valleys are trying to do that. We've mentioned I3, we've mentioned the ERA hubs. Pirita had on her slide the European Universities Initiative, and there are several of the European University Alliances that are trying to take on the same role as connecting their regional innovation ecosystems. But they all sort of start from their own perspective, and therefore, do we have something which kind of cuts across that? And I think the ERA hubs could do that if it was open enough to include, I say, all those different types of actors, because it will work differently depending on the region. So, do we already have an existing ideal type? No, we don't. Are there examples of when interregional cooperation in research and innovation are happening? Yeah, of course there are. I mean, whether it's the platforms, the smart specialization thematic platforms, that's happening, the cooperation. Do I have evidence of how that is working down into the actual cooperation to create innovative products and services? No, I can't just give you an example now. I think probably too far out of that, which I used to work on more, to be able to give you an example off the top of my head. But I think Pirita's maybe, just to push it onto Pirita, whether she has a specific example of interregional cooperation that comes close to the ERA concept that can be highlighted. I'm sure you do with your members.
Yeah, thank you, John. So yeah, you passed the ball directly to Pirita. So Pirita, would you have any insights or examples? Share. She didn't get the. Pirita, do you hear us?
Yeah, just trying to mute myself with my phone. And yeah, maybe without going to examples, because of course there are a lot of examples, but I just wanted to highlight just going a bit back what John was saying. I think it's a bit like in the ecosystem world, there is not one size that fits all. And again, as it was highlighted, it really varies depending on ecosystems and also in the different support mechanisms that what type of actor is put in front. I mean, in the ecosystem, it really can be any one of the stakeholders taking a lead on orchestrating it. And again, the ERA hubs is putting the emphasis on the role of a university of applied science, really being a bit the orchestrator of the ecosystems. And there also, I would also see this, that one of the big values of the ERA Hub concept has been really to bring the debate on the European research area about the importance of those territorial ecosystems. And I guess it's more natural to do that, do this as a way of a concept that really puts the knowledge partners in front, because this is somehow fitting well the European research area. But I think at the same time, I really, as ERA is still one of the really the I would say the main one of the main platforms where research and innovation policy is discussed. I think it's really extremely important that something like ERA hubs is kept on the agenda there going forward to really push forward this idea of ecosystems and also their connectivity being an important element of RNI policy.
Thank you. So last speakers as well is Maria Grazia. So would you have any viewpoints?
Yes, just one comment from my side. Listening of your comments and your introduction, I was thinking that maybe there is also a need to work on the skills and the education for people specialized in coordinating and managing and facilitating this type of integration. Because sometimes we need people with specific competencies and abilities in order to collect all the input coming from the different sides of the ecosystem actors and trying to find a way to address in each regional context the actions and the activities in order to find the better ways to collaborate also at interregional level. So I think that a measure can be useful if addressed also in this sense to create competencies and specific figures with abilities in this skill. It is not an easy job and not so common, but I think it's really important in order to ability this type of connection. And what we are doing in the ERA Fabric project, we know that the ERA Hubs concept was not considered a priority in the European policy agenda, but we consider that some of the results we obtain with these projects can be used in any case as policy recommendation to better tailor the next measures and next intervention. So what we will do in the end of the project is to try to find some indication, some recommendation that can be used in any way in some contexts. It is our idea.
Yeah, and John has his hand up. And you're muted.
Just to say that while we were being, I was being a bit pessimistic about the ERA hubs in terms of the new ERA policy agenda. I mean that where there could be a link, Emilia Grazia, is what you just mentioned, because there is an action on research managers as something that they want to look at, and if that is interpreted in a broad sense, not just managing research projects in the institute, their own institution, and or writing applications for funding, but having that orchestrating role, then that can be something where we can bring in the kind of the knowledge from these projects on in the ERA.
Yeah, that's an interesting one with highlighting the need for skills for doing the coordination and the facilitation work. We still have time for a couple of questions more. So please, every one of you participating in the webinar, just raise your hand, write it in the chat. Now's the opportunity. And while you think, I can ask a question myself. Actually, based on the last discussion now, and also I think touching upon both at least John and Pirita's presentations, is what should then how should higher education involve in supporting the goals of the ERA hubs? Would like to start?
Well, I can start, given that I'm representing higher education somehow. I guess I should have something to say about this. I mean, as I mentioned in the introduction to my presentation, I think research and innovation should be seen in a broad sense and should be looking at, not just research innovation in universities or RTOs or any organizations dedicated specifically to research, but innovation in companies. And that is something that we forget easily, because they live in sort of their own world. And yet the innovation that happens in companies is not necessarily scientific research, but it's something that can be more important. And applying also knowledge. It's not just generating knowledge, but applying knowledge to processes. And for that, you need highly skilled graduates who are able to work, not only graduates, but those who are already in the labour market, working in the companies, that they need to continue to upgrade their skills, competencies. And this is where I see higher education in a broader, well, not just for their own research function, but their ability to build competencies in general in the region for innovation. And the problem is we don't always have high-profile funding schemes for this type of role for higher education institutions. They usually would be concentrating on their latest cutting-edge research that's come out, or and then on the education side, they don't sometimes think about research innovation at all. They're just in terms of the traditional quality assurance mechanisms and things. So this is a gap. I mean, the EIT and their HEI initiative, I think, is occupying this space to some extent, and that's interesting. And I hope that continues to be rolled out more. And yeah, in the European Universities Initiative that I mentioned already, that it's not just about mobility, it's about because it's Erasmus funded, but it's about also having missions, and they're depending on the types of alliances. So there's a lot that they can do. They don't always do what the region needs, and that's the other problem is sort of the governance, and this is something that's difficult to change when we in the world of regional innovation, is to then try and change HE systems. But it's certainly something that it can be crucial, and when it has happened, and there are examples when that does work, of universities having that role, that they can be really game changers for the region.
Thank you. And would any of the other speakers like to follow up?
Yeah, maybe just to complement, I mean, really very much agree with John on this. Indeed, this, I think one of the issues, of course, is that it's not necessarily valorized now enough. Let's say the researchers are still doing sometimes the research that and it's not enough valorized this part of their research of going actually to the ecosystem and working more closely with the companies or with also with policymakers. So this is definitely something that still needs to be developed when it comes to research assessment and so on. So I see that this is an area that can be improved. Maybe there can be links to this also when it comes to European research area, as there are several actions also looking at the research assessment and all knowledge valorization and different types of elements there that can be where we can make this link stronger going forward.
Yeah, would either Maria Grazia or anyone else in the audience also have some comments building on this discussion? No, we still got a few minutes for a quick additional question as well. Note takers. Yeah. So no, I think then we'll spend the last 2 minutes to first say a big thank you to the speakers for having great presentations here at the webinar, and also to Cecilia for sharing your thoughts, and of course to all of you participating in the webinar. So as Asa already mentioned in the chat, the recording of the webinar will be made available on the ERRIN webpage quite soon. So you can then also share it with your network and your colleagues that might be interested in seeing what we have discussed and what you presented. So other than that, I just wish you a very nice day and week, and yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug, also for your work of organization on this webinar. I think it was useful, in particular for ERRAFabrik and its final conclusion that we will share with you in the next month. Thank you also from my side.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.